Today I was working on a drawing when I realized that I didn't know what was going on and I needed a reference image. This got me thinking about why I didn't get one in the first place, which then led me to remember all of the bad art advice that I've ever received. So here are 5 pieces of art advice that sound helpful but will probably set you back if you listen to them. This first one is to draw only in pencil. While it can seem helpful as a beginner to have the comfort of being able to erase and smudge blend with your finger, I really don't suggest drawing with pencil all the time. Instead, I suggest drawing with ballpoint pen. The reason I say this is because when you're drawing in pencil versus in pen, you have the comfort of being able to erase and go back on your lines and act like your mistakes were never there in the first place. But when you're drawing in pen, it's a little different because while you still have the full control of the pressure, especially if you're using a ballpoint pen rather than a fine point pen, you're not sitting with the fact that your pen is able to be erased and that you can go back on your mistakes. So that kind of implies that you'll get better line weight, you'll get better line confidence, and you'll also make less mistakes with anatomy and proportions the longer you draw like this for.
Number 2 is to not use references.
I was talking about in the beginning of the video, I was making a drawing the other day and I didn't use a reference for whatever reason. I don't even know why, and I just realized that it was kind of ingrained in my mind that it's bad to use references, and the only reason why it's like that is because people online tend to get very accusatory when it comes to referencing in art, and that's a little different because in the online sphere, when you post with reference images or when you post a drawing that you use many references for and don't credit them, people can sometimes get upset if they find that their own work was referenced without permission for it. Why I say that it's bad to not use references at all is because everyone has a different perspective and has encountered different people, places, objects, things, and everything that you know in your mind and can draw off the dome, if you will, is called your visual library. And the more you discover and draw, the more sophisticated your library becomes. But when you're being told not to use reference images, you're also basically being told to shut down that library and to never learn again. I know it sounds a little dramatic, but there's a reason that art schools have historically taught students to do studies and still life, masterworks, draw their classmates, etc. Without referencing anything, there's nothing new for you to learn. The main point that I want to get across here is that referencing is good, and people have literally been referencing since the beginning of time. Like, even if you go back to Lascaux Caves, the Great Hall of the Bulls, right? Even on those caves, the bulls that you see that were in a more realistic style, they were referenced. They didn't just invent how a bull looks. They knew because they were in the area, right? And I just think it's really annoying when people get all upset and defensive about not being able to reference for art. And if you're worried about your own art that you're posting online being too heavily referenced or not knowing who the reference is from, I suggest either image searching who the reference is from so you can find out, or simply not posting it if you're too worried. If you're tracing, which is another story, it's also a good tool to learn, but I suggest that you don't post traced artworks online unless you have the explicit consent of the artist that you're tracing from. In general, I think it is great practice to use references regardless of the point of your art career. This next one is to draw small if you're unsure of what you're drawing. This sounds good because it makes sense. If you don't know it, then draw it small until you're more confident, right? Or until you're not taking up as much space in your sketchbook. Fortunately, this does have the opposite effect because it keeps you inside of a comfort zone that leads to far less improvement over time. When you're doing this, you're really just making yourself less confident in your own skill as an artist and as your own skill as a thinker, really, because you're hiding your thoughts and you're hiding your progress in a little margin of a paper when instead you could be drawing large versions that you can check the errors for much clearer. And I know it might seem a little uncomfortable and possibly even embarrassing, but I really suggest that you should draw what you aren't familiar with as large as you can. I was talking about this actually in my sketchbook video where I went through every single sketchbook that I've ever owned because that was a habit that I saw a ton in myself when I was younger, and I just think it's really avoidable, you know? Like, I would have learned so much faster personally if I had drawn bigger like that. I want you to be successful as well, so that's kind of what I'm getting at with that one, and it's not really that big of a change, it's just the size and the scale of what you're drawing. And if you're drawing digital, this still applies to you, because I know a lot of people are starting out with digital art nowadays instead of a sketchbook, but you might be super zoomed in on a canvas or something, but I still suggest trying to take up the entire size of your canvas or your screen, whatever you're working on, just until you get that habit down, because it's a really good practice, and it shows a ton of improvement too when you look back, because you're like, oh wow, I drew that really big, I can see all the errors, but now look where I am, right? And it's not hiding the work that you're putting in, essentially. It also helps practice with your line confidence a little bit, because it's really showing that you as an artist are committed to the work that you're doing. But also, when you draw big, your wrist loosens up, and when it loosens up, it can make smoother, faster, and clearer lines. And when you get more used to this, then you have a more confident flow when you're doing line art or sketching or whatnot, and that's essentially what line confidence is. The fourth one is to go with your first vision of the piece that you have in mind. Now, I'm guilty of this one myself, as I am with many on this list, but in my opinion, it's always good to thumbnail at least 4 variations of a piece before you go into it. Now, this is a little different for if you're just sketching something, but this is talking about like big, finished pieces that you want, like full illustrations with color and whatnot. Sometimes people's initial visions can sound great, but when they come out, it's not exactly how they wanted, and they don't always know why. This is why I suggest that you draw at least 4 variations of the piece, and use references, please, when you're doing this. It's okay if it looks clunky, it's a sketch. But choose the one that sticks out the most to you, and that's totally fine if your initial vision is still the best one. It just proves that your intuition in that particular piece was correct. But it's also much better to know that you tried out different options rather than to have rushed into something and be in the dark about the different outcomes that it could have had. The fifth and final one is not telling people about a project until it's done. While it is quite possible that you may abandon a project that you once were excited about, in my opinion, it's always best to share your art and ideas with your peers. Critique is never malicious and is usually given by artists to other artists that they want to see succeed. Of course, there's a little asterisk there if people are beefing, but for the most part, 99.9% of the time, even though your brain might perceive critique as malicious, it's usually just people who have your best interests in mind who are trying to give advice. If you have trouble taking critique, it's always good to keep asking for it, because being able to look at your art and other people's criticisms of your art from an outside perspective is a muscle that needs to be exercised, and it can show you many new ideas and visions in order for your art to become more polished and complete. It's a great skill to grow, and if you ever plan on taking your art professionally, like if you are not yet in college and you plan on going into the art industry, or if you are entering high school and are planning on taking an accelerated course like an AP or an IB art class, it's a great skill to learn because it is fundamental in the curriculum. It's built in there, and while some people may have differing opinions on how to run critique is always going to be there for the rest of your career, and if you keep resisting it, your peers might notice that, and it's not always a great time. It's much better when everyone can have a productive conversation about work, and you can learn a ton if you're willing to listen to other people's advice. It's one of my favorite parts of being an art major, honestly. I'm currently majoring in art education, if you didn't know, and I think that critique is one of my favorite parts about class because I get to see all these different insights on the drawings that I'm making, which is super cool. And I just like learning from other people, and I think that you should too. It's a great skill to have. If you want critique or advice, feel free to share the ideas of your visions or of the projects that you're making in the comments, and we can have a little community chat about what's going on in people's artist life careers. But in all, those were the 5 things that, well, they sound helpful, I don't think are good skills or good practices for you to have as an artist, especially going into the new year and everything like that. And I just want everyone to be mindful of the advice that they get and to curate and choose what advice they want to listen to, which includes me. If you don't agree with something in the video, feel free to comment about why, and also you don't have to agree with me. These are all my opinions of the advice that I've received personally and think have has been bad for my own art practices and mindset. So with all of that being said, I hope you learned something from this video, and if you would like to watch more content like this, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you're not new here and this isn't your first arty video, also please feel free to consider joining the family. I have a little channel membership going on, and I shout out every single member of the family, and we have these super cute exclusive arty emotes. Aren't they so adorable? I love them. You also get a tag by your username, which is so adorable. I have these little leaf themes going on, and if you're a member for long enough, you even get different colored stars. Isn't that awesome? I know. I personally wish I had a tag next to my own name. I hope you all have an amazing day or night, and have a good one, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.